The chamber of the Galactic Concord was built to humble. 100 tiers of balconies rose like stacked cliffs, each crammed with delegates from hundreds of civilizations. They glowed in every shade, scaled, feathered, tentacled, armored, eyes or lenses fixed on the central floor where humanity stood alone. Commander Liasve had faced down orbital sieges and riots in starving cities back on Earth, but nothing compared to this. The oppressive weight of contempt pressing down from every direction. He adjusted the cuffs of his formal uniform, pretending calm, though the sound of thousands of alien voices hissing with laughter crawled across his skin. At the center dais, Counselor Drexel of the THRYNN Collective leaned forward, his spine silhouette magnified on a dozen holoscreens. His voice was smooth, cultured, and razor-sharp. Let us test this young species. He let the pause linger like bait. They clamor for colonization rights, as though a few decades of faster-than-light travel makes them our peers. But are they fit? Are they stable? Ripples of amusement slithered through the chamber. Drexel spread his clawed hands wide. I propose we grant them land. Not some gentle moon, not a tame garden world, but Akron 4, Class 0, uninhabitable, the graveyard of expeditions. If humanity lasts a year there, perhaps they deserve to call themselves a civilization worthy of standing among us. The laughter broke into open jeers. Delegates hissed, clicked, and thundered their approval. Screens lit with alien symbols of mockery. At Elias's side, his second-in-command, Dr. Mara Kessler, muttered under breath, "They're feeding us to the wolves." "Correction," Elias said softly, jaw tight. "They're feeding us to the whole damn ecosystem." He stepped forward before the council could dissolve into more jeering. His boots struck the polished stone floor, sound swallowed by the vast chamber until he reached the speaking podium. His voice carried on raw defiance alone. "Humanity accepts." The laughter faltered. The chamber stilled. Drexel's spine stiffened in amusement. "You accept?" Elias nodded. "You give us your death world, we'll make it our home. You send us to hell, we'll build cities on the ashes." He leaned on the podium, letting his eyes sweep the balconies, locking stares where he could. "You underestimate us. That's your mistake." A ripple of murmurs replaced the laughter. Some delegates shifted uncomfortably, others sneered harder. Drexel's expression remained unreadable. "You are free to throw your kind into the abyss," the counselor said smoothly. "But know this, failure will not be forgiven. If your colony collapses, Earth forfeits all claims to future expansion. You will remain confined to your single cradle, dependent on others for scraps." Mara whispered sharply, "This is suicide." Elias didn't blink. "Then we'd better not fail." The gavel of the presiding Concord speaker struck once, final and merciless. So recorded. Humanity is assigned Akron 4. Preparations are to begin immediately. The chamber erupted again, this time in something closer to astonished murmurs and laughter. Humanity had been dismissed as reckless upstarts. Now they had accepted the impossible. Hours later, back aboard the Terran diplomatic ship, the corridors thrummed with hushed voices. The crew avoided Elias's gaze as he strode toward the briefing hall. He knew what they thought, that he had doomed them all. Inside the hall, his officers and specialists waited around a long steel table. Maps of Akron 4 flickered on the holoscreen. Jagged mountains, churning storm fronts, rivers glowing faintly toxic under sensor scans. Chief Engineer Rahim crossed his arms, voice hard. "Commander, with respect, this planet eats expeditions for breakfast. The Concord classified at 0, for a reason. No stable biosphere. Hyperseismic activity. Atmosphere borderline corrosive. It's not colonizable." "That's exactly why they sent us there," Mara said, her voice low. "They want us to fail. To bury us before we ever become competition." Silence pressed against the room. All eyes turned to Elias. He tapped the table once, bringing up a scan of Earth and the archives. Forests, deserts, oceans, cities lit across continents. "They don't understand us. They don't know what it means to come from a world that tried to kill us every single day. Floods, plagues, predators, firestorms. We thrived anyway. Earth wasn't gentle. Neither are we." Rahim frowned. "That's poetry, not logistics. We'll need resources, supply lines. Supplies will be delayed. Mara, cut in." Drexel made sure of it. "We're on our own for the first year." The room darkened with the weight of reality. Elias straightened, voice iron steady. "Then we adapt. That's what humans do. We improvise. We turn garbage into weapons, disasters into opportunities. Every world they call uninhabitable is just another puzzle waiting for us to solve." He looked around the table, meeting each weary, doubtful gaze. "They think this is punishment. It's a chance. The moment we tame Akron 4, we're no longer newcomers. We're pioneers." Rahim let out a slow breath, shoulders sagging. Mara gave a thin smile that was half grim, half defiant. Finally, she said, "Then let's make hell livable." When Elias finally reached his quarters, exhaustion hit him like a wave. He braced his hands on the desk, staring at the slowly rotating globe of Akron 4. Storm systems circled like angry scars. Volcanoes glowed red across continents. Rivers bled acid green under ultraviolet filters. Every instinct told him this was madness. Yet beneath the fear thrummed something else, an old, familiar heat. The same drive that had carried humans across seas, into skies, into orbit and beyond. He whispered to himself, as if to the planet hanging before him. You're not a death world. You're a challenge, and we don't walk away from those. The stars beyond glimmered in silence. The countdown to Akron 4 had already begun. The fleet dropped into Akron 4's orbit like a string of beads cast across a storm. From the observation deck of the Resolute, Elias Vey watched the planet fill the viewport. It wasn't beautiful, not in the way other worlds were. No tranquil blues, no soft greens, no cloud system swirling gently. Acheron was raw violence. Thunderhead stacked like walls, lightning chains crawling across continents, rivers glowing faintly corrosive in the night, volcanoes throwing plumes into the upper atmosphere. Beside him, Mara exhaled. They call this a planet? Looks more like a scar. Scars mean survival, Elias said, though he couldn't drag his eyes from the chaos below. This world's been through war with itself for eons. It's still standing. So will we. Landing was chaos wrapped in metal. Dropships bucked like toys tossed and tied as they pierced the storm front. Alarms screamed, hulls rattled, and one craft vanished from the formation in a burst of static and light. Stabilizers at maximum, Raheem shouted over the comms. If the winds hit harder, we'll be ground-paced. Stay on vector, Elias barked. His knuckles whitened against the harness. The view ahead was a storm wall, purple-black clouds laced with lightning thick as tree trunks. The Resolute's descent engines roared, shields flaring against charged particles. For minutes that stretched like hours, the dropships fought the storm until, with a teeth-grinding jolt, they broke through into relative calm. Below, jagged mountains split the surface like claws. Rivers carved toxic green scars through valleys. In the distance, geysers blasted steam hundreds of meters high. Target site located, Raheem reported, voice ragged. Geothermal vent cluster. Power potentials off the charts. Stable plateau for settlement. Stable, Mara muttered, if you ignore the tectonics. Noted, Elias said, mark it. We land. The first boots hit Acheron soil, under skies boiling with ash and rain. Gravity pressed down, heavier than Earth's, each step a drag. The air, though technically breathable, carried a chemical tang that burned the lungs. Masks snapped into place across every face. Elias crouched, scooping a handful of blackened soil. It crumbled between his gloves, gritty and strange. Above, lightning forked through clouds, thunder rolling like the roar of some unseen beast. Welcome home, he said, forcing calm into his voice. The colonists spread, unloading equipment, planting perimeter beacons, deploying shield generators. The ground trembled with distant quakes. From a ridge, Elias could see the valley floor steaming from vents, glowing faintly red where magma threatened to breach. Night fell fast, dragging storms with it. The rain came down acidic, hissing against armor, searing holes into fabric before the shield stabilized. The first casualty was a technician caught outside the barrier during the storm's opening blast. His screams cut through the comms before static swallowed them. Inside the shield perimeter, morale sagged. Colonists huddled over crates, staring at the walls of storm pounding against their thin line of safety. This is suicide, one whispered. They sent us here to die. Elias climbed onto a cargo hauler, voice carrying over the storm. No one said it would be easy. You knew what we were signing for. But listen to me. We've survived worse. Mara muttered to Raheem. Have we, though? Elias ignored her. This planet wants us gone. Good. That means we can take it. Tomorrow we build. Tonight we hold. They didn't hold long before the world tested them. It began with scratching against the perimeter field. At first faint, then heavier. Colonists froze, eyes snapping toward the fence. Shapes moved just beyond the storm glare, low, skittering, multiple limbs clicking against rock. Contacts, Raheem hissed, raising his rifle. The creatures struck in unison. They came in a blur of chitin and teeth, wolf-sized insectoid predators with mandibles like hook blades. They hurled themselves at the shield, sizzling where the barrier resisted, crawling over each other to press harder. Hold fire until breach. Elias shouted. The barrier flared, flickered, then dropped at the far corner. In the split second of failure, 3 predators surged through. Gunfire cracked, harsh in the storm. Colonists screamed, scrambling for cover. One beast slammed a technician to the ground, mandibles tearing through armor. Raheem shot towards head apart in a spray of acid that burned through the dirt. Elias fired twice, dropped another mid-lunge, then kicked its twitching carcass clear of the barricade. The third leapt toward a group of unarmed colonists, until Mara's sidearm flared, the shot punching through its thorax. The creatures shrieked and withdrew into storm, dragging their dead with them. Silence returned, broken only by ragged breathing. The shield generator sputtered, but held. Elias lowered his rifle, chest heaving. He looked at the faces turned toward him. Fear, disbelief, exhaustion. First night's always the worst, he said, voice steady despite the pounding in his veins. Now you've seen what's out there, and you've seen we can kill it. He raised his rifle. That's all that matters. A few nods, hesitant at first, then stronger. Mara wiped rain and blood from her mask. If that was a scouting party. Elias finished for her. Then the main force comes soon. All the better. We'll be ready. When dawn finally clawed to the storm, the colony's perimeter stood scarred but intact. The ground beyond was littered with deep gouges and acidic burns where the predators had tested them. Inside the walls, colonists moved with heavy steps but tighter focus. Equipment was reinforced, weapons recalibrated, defenses doubled. Fear hadn't vanished, but something had shifted. Fear now lived beside defiance. Elias stood at the ridge, scanning the storm horizon. The planet growled with distant quakes, winds carrying the faint echo of alien roars. He touched the comm to all personnel. Yesterday we arrived. Last night, the planet tried to throw us back. We're still here. That's the difference between us and the rest of the galaxy. They saw death. We see challenge. And challenge is how we grow. The comm crackled with replies. Muted at first, then louder, voices overlapping with determination. Elias allowed himself a thin smile. Good, because Acheron's just getting started. And so are we. The colony was awake long before the sun tore through Acheron's storm curtain. Floodlights cut pale cones into gloom, reflecting off the blackened soil and jagged cliffs. The shield perimeter hummed steadily, crackling now and then when the rain came down too hard. Elias Vey paced the command tent, eyes flicking from one hollow screen to another. Readouts displayed geothermal scans, shield stability, and resource reserves, all critical, all on the edge of red. Mara leaned over the supply chart. Food's our weakest point. Hydroponics won't stabilize for another 3 weeks, maybe longer. Rations will hold until then if we cut portions. They won't like that, Elias said. They don't have to like it. They just have to live through it. The entrance flap rustled, and Rahim entered, helmet tucked under one arm, jaw tight. Scouts returned. The terrain north of the ridge is worse than we thought. Lava rivers block most routes. And he hesitated. And what? Elias pressed. Rahim dropped a small container onto the table. Inside, dark shards glimmered faintly with an inner light. We found these lodged in the cliffs. Not natural. Carved. Something used tools. Mara frowned. Artifacts. More like warnings, Rahim said. Some of the rocks were arranged in patterns. Too precise for chance. We're not the first to step here. Elias's gut tightened. The predators last night had been proof enough the planet wasn't empty, but tools meant intelligence. And intelligence meant strategy. By midday, unrest simmered through the camp. Colonists whispered about the storm, about the monsters, about the artifacts. Fear ran like a hidden current, eroding morale. Elias gathered them at the perimeter. You've all seen what this world holds. Storms, beasts, signs of others before us. But listen well, we're not here to hide. We're here to endure. To prove that when the galaxy says impossible, humanity answers watch us. A few heads lifted, but not all. In the shadows near the equipment bay, Drexel watched the speech with a sneer. A technician by assignment, he had always been restless, critical, never satisfied. Where others saw hardship as challenge, Drexel saw betrayal. Later, in the cover of the storm's roar, he gathered a handful of colonists whose eyes were still heavy with fear. This is madness, he told them, voice sharp. Elias plays the hero while we starve. He'd rather bury us under alien claws than admit this mission is doomed. We can't survive here. One woman swallowed hard. And what's your plan? Run? The storms would rip us apart. Not if we call for extraction, Drexel countered. The fleet won't ignore a distress signal. They'll come for us, if the signal's strong enough. But Elias won't allow it. He wants glory more than lives. So we decide, follow him into the grave or save ourselves. The storm howled louder, drowning the silence that followed. That night, Elias made his rounds. The storm outside battered the shield with relentless fury. Yet inside the perimeter, lights burned, machines hummed, colonists pushed forward. It should have reassured him. It didn't. Mara fell and stepped beside him. You sense it too. Something's off, Elias admitted. Not just the planet. Us. There's tension I can't shake. Fear turns the blame, Mara said flatly. Always does. Question is, who are they blaming? Elias glanced at her, jaw set. If it's me, fine. I can take it. What I can't allow is division. Not here. Not now. A sharp crack cut through the storm. The lights flickered, dimmed, then stabilized. Elias rushed to the generator cluster. Technicians swarmed, shouting over alarms. Main cupper overloaded, one yelled. Impossible, another snapped. These units are shielded against surges. Elias crouched, eyes narrowing on the burnout junction. The damage wasn't from stress. It was deliberate. Wires cut, seals tampered. Sabotage. His stomach turned cold. By morning, rumors raced through the camp. Someone had struck from within. The word traitor whispered through the lines, feeding paranoia. Elias convened his officers. This isn't the planet testing us. It's one of our own. Rahim slammed a fist against the table. Then we root them out, lock down the camp, search every unit. That'll tear what little trust we have apart, Mara countered. People are barely holding together as it is. Elias studied their faces, then the weary expressions outside the tent. Both options carried risk, but hesitation would kill them faster than storms or beasts. Do it quietly, he ordered Raheem. Targeted sweeps, no public displays. And keep this between us. The colonists need enemies outside the walls, not inside. Raheem nodded reluctantly and left. 2 days later, Drexel made his move. Under cover of a maintenance shift, he slipped into the comms relay, fingers dancing across the controls. Lines of code scrolled as he bypassed safeguards, redirecting power toward the distress beacon he had hidden in a supply crate. The machine whined as it overloaded, sending a piercing signal into the void. Drexel grinned. They'll hear us. They have to. But the grin froze when the door hissed open. Elias stood in the frame, rifle slung across his back, eyes cold. Expecting someone else? Elias asked. Drexel stiffened, hand twitching toward the console. You don't understand. This mission is a death sentence. I'm saving lives. You're endangering them, Elias snapped. Do you have any idea what happens when you broadcast like that? You don't just call the fleet. You light a beacon for every predator on this rock. And worse, whatever carved those artifacts. Drexel's face twisted. Better that than starving to death under your command. The console screeched as power surged dangerously. Elias lunged, slamming a hand against cutoff. Sparks flew, the beacon dying mid-scream. The smell of burnt circuitry filled the room. For a moment, only the storm outside spoke. You crossed a line, Elias said quietly. You're finished here. Drexel's eyes narrowed. No, you are. When the others see you silencing the only chance of survival, they'll turn. They'll see you for what you are. Mara arrived with 2 guards. She took in the scene, Drexel's defiance, the charred console. What now? She asked Elias. Elias's answer came heavy. We can find him, and we prepare. Because that signal, however brief, wasn't silent enough. Something out there heard us. That night, the colony slept fitfully. The storm pressed harder, as if the planet itself had taken notice. From beyond perimeter, faint roars echoed, closer than before, and in the shadows of the ridge, hundreds of red eyes blinked open. The storm eased by morning, but the silence it left behind was worse. No wind howled, no rain pounded the shield. The air hung still, heavy with static, as though the planet itself held its breath. Elias stood at the perimeter wall, visor polarized against the pale red dawn. He scanned the ridge where Drexel's signal had screamed into the void. The rocks looked unchanged, but something primal whispered otherwise. Raheem joined him, rifle slung over one shoulder. Scouts report movement in the valley. Large movement. Bigger than anything we've seen. How many? Elias asked. Raheem hesitated. 1. That single word landed heavier than a horde. Elias's jaw tightened. Mara's voice crackled over comms. Command tent, now! Inside, the hollow table projected a heat signature the size of a dropship, crawling steadily toward their coordinates. The creature's body stretched longer than the perimeter wall, its mass pulsing with unnatural vitality. It's hunting us, Mara said. No, Elias corrected. It's answering the call. The room stiffened. Raheem spat. Drexel invited it. Doesn't matter how it found us. Elias cut in. What matters is stopping it before it tears this colony apart. Mara's fingers flew across the console. Standard rifles won't cut it. Its hide's denser than composite plating. We need heavy firepower. We don't have heavy firepower, Elias said. We have ingenuity. He tapped the geothermal readouts. This thing's drawn by heat. Our vents, our lights, our power grid. It all screams prey. We'll use that. Preparations ran through the day. Colonists hauled explosives from mining stores, wiring along a lattice of lava vents beneath the ridge. Others erected barricades, welded armor plates to choke points, or filled drums with fuel for improvised fire traps. The fear in their eyes was plain, but so was the resolve. If this world wanted to break them, it would bleed first. Drexel, confined to a stored container, shouted curses as workers passed. None answered. Not anymore. The ground began to tremble at dusk. Dishes rattled. Tools clanged, the very soil vibrating with an approaching weight. Floodlights snapped on, beams sweeping the ridge. The predator emerged. It crawled from the storm's curtain like a nightmare-made flesh, scaled high, glistening, ridges of bone along its spine glowing faintly from biothermal heat. Its jaws split into 4, teeth serrated, steaming vapor rising with every exhale. 6 limbs carried it forward, talons gouging trenches into the ground. Gasps rippled through the line. Even hardened soldiers froze for a heartbeat. Steady. Elias barked. His voice cracked to paralysis. The beast roared, a sound that shook the shield wall, rattling bones and tech alike. Then it charged. The first barrage lit the night. Dozens of rifles spat fire, their rounds sparking harmlessly against armored scales. Rockets streaked from jury-rigged launchers, detonating across its flank. The explosion staggered it, but didn't stop it. It slammed into the outer wall, claws tearing through steel like fabric. Alarms wailed. Sparks showered the ground. Trigger trap 1. Elias ordered. A row of buried charges erupted, collapsing part of the ridge. Boulders cascaded down, crushing one of the creature's limbs. It screamed, thrashing, tail smashing supplies shed to splinters. The colonists fought like cornered wolves. Mara directed fire teams with cold precision. Rahim led counterstrikes, sprinting under cover to drag wounded clear. Elias moved everywhere at once, his rifle barking, his voice anchoring the chaos. Still, the beast pressed harder, tearing deeper into the colony. At the shield core, sparks erupted. Generator failing, a technician cried. If the shield collapsed, they'd lose everything. Elias's mind raced. The geothermal vents. Heat and power, the lure that had brought the predator here, could end it too. He opened comms. All units, pull back the secondary perimeter. Leave the vents exposed. Mara's eyes snapped to him. You're going to bait it. Elias nodded. And bury it. The retreat was brutal. Colonists fell back under the monster's relentless advance. Habitats collapsed. Fire spread from ruptured fuel drums, painting the night in orange flame. The beast lunged to the exposed vents, steam rising as its claws cracked rock. Heat spilled upward, the very air shimmering with volcanic fury. Now! Elias roared. The detonators snapped. The ground exploded in a roar of fire and molten stone. The ridge split open, geysers of lava spewing skyward. The predator shrieked as the earth swallowed it, its armored hide glowing red, flesh blistering under volcanic heat. For a long moment, its thrashing filled the valley. Then the noise faded, swallowed by the churning lava. The colony fell silent, except for crackling flames and ragged breathing. Hours later, survivors gathered around the blackened crater. Smoke coiled upward. The smell of scorched scales clung to the air. Rahim broke the silence first. It's dead. No, Elias said softly. It's defeated. This world isn't finished with us. Mara stepped closer, voice steady despite exhaustion. But tonight we prove something. To ourselves. To anyone watching. Elias scanned the battered colony. The broken walls, the burned-out shelters, the weary yet unbroken faces. They had lost much, but they had not lost. He straightened, raising his voice for all to hear. This world was meant to break us. It failed. Remember this moment, because it's proof. Proof that humanity doesn't bow, doesn't yield. We endure, and we rise. The words carried through the smoke, through the ruin, into every weary heart. Heads lifted, eyes hardened. For the first time since landing, Elias saw not fear in his people's gaze, but fire. Far above, satellites relayed fractured transmissions. Images of the battle leaked beyond Acheron, across Concord networks. Aliens who once laughed at humanity now watched in silence as humans stood triumphant over what no one else would dare face. And in the Concord chamber, Counselor Drexel received the first reports with disbelief. Impossible, he hissed. But the footage did not lie. The galaxy's so-called weakest species had slain an apex predator on a Class-0 Deathworld. And the galaxy would never look at them the same way again. The years reshaped Akron 4. Where once the storm drowned every sunrise, domes now glimmered under the pale sky, their reinforced shells cutting through the haze. Geothermal towers rose like sentinels across the valley, their spires siphoning heat from the earth. Pathways carved through hardened lava-connected habitats, labs, and growing fields. What had begun as scattered shelters was now a city, carved by human hands and stubbornness. The scars of the predator battle still marred the ground, a black crater at the colony's edge, but even that had become a monument. Children played near its rim, their laughter carried on the wind that no longer felt hostile, just wild. Elias Vey walked the ridge above the colony. Older now, his hair streaked with silver, his skin weathered by storms and battles. He carried no weapon, only a data slate filled with years of reports, triumphs, and hard-won survival. Mara approached, her stride as steady as ever. She set her helmet under one arm. Council summons is confirmed. They'll hear the petition in 2 days. They'll try not to, Elias said. His voice was deeper now, tempered by time. But they can't ignore us any longer. She studied him a moment. Do you think they'll admit it? That this world isn't what they called it. Elias gazed over the colony. Smoke plumes rising from forges, lights flickering from classrooms, life pulsing where death was once promised. They'll have to. The Concord chamber was as Elias remembered, vast, domed, echoing with the voices of 100 species. Yet this time, when he stepped onto the central platform, silence fell. No laughter, no jeers, just the weight of their stares. Counselor Drexel sat high among them, older too, though bitterness kept him sharp. His eyes narrowed when Elias appeared, but he said nothing. Elias placed a slate on the podium. Years ago, you sentenced humanity to Akron 4. You called it uninhabitable, a Class-0 Deathworld. You expected us to vanish. Instead, we endured. The hollow screens lit with footage. Children running through learning domes, crops growing under hydroponic lights, soldiers sparring in training yards, towers humming with geothermal energy. Then the predator battle, grainy, raw, but undeniable. The beast's roar, the explosion, the colonists standing over the crater. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Elias continued, his voice steady. We did not survive by chance. We adapted. We built. We turned every threat into a resource, every loss into knowledge. Where others saw only death, we found life. That is a human way. A counselor of the Drelethi, insectoid and severe, leaned forward. You mean to claim you have tamed Akron 4? Elias shook his head. No one tames a world like this. But we live with it. It does not kill us, it strengthens us. And now, we stand here to demand recognition. Akron 4 is no longer Class 0. It is a human zone, habitable for us, by us. The chamber erupted. Voices clashed in alien tongues. Some incredulous, some curious, some angry. Drexel rose, his voice slicing through the din. This is absurd. Humans manipulate images, twist stories. They seek sympathy to mask failure. One settlement is not conquest. One beast slain does not change a classification. Elias met his gaze calmly. You were there the day you mocked us, Drexel. You said if we survived a year, perhaps we'd be worth notice. It has been more than a year. It has been many. We did not crawl back. We did not beg for rescue. We stand now stronger than when we left. He gestured to the footage of the colony's children. Our future grows on the soil you called cursed. That is proof enough. Another counselor, older and scaled, spoke slowly. You are suggesting a precedent. That humans thrive where no one else dares. Elias's voice sharpened. I am not suggesting. I am declaring. You thought punishment would end us. Instead, you forged us. If you still believe humanity is weak, then step onto Akron for yourselves. See if your kind lasts a day. The challenge hung in the chamber like a blade. No one answered. Deliberations stretched hours. Elias waited in silence. Mara aside, Rahim just behind, scarred but still unyielding. When the council returned, the presiding voice carried across the dome. The classification of Akron 4 is hereby amended. It is no longer Class 0. By Concord authority, it is recognized as human zone, habitable under unique human conditions. The chamber filled with noise again, but this time it was not laughter. It was the sound of history shifting. Drexel slumped in his seat, face pale, his voice swallowed by the crowd. Later, back in the colony, the news spread faster than the storms ever had. Bells rang, torches lit, families embraced in streets carved from rock. Children painted new murals across the domes, no longer monsters, but people standing tall against the storm. Elias stood before them all at the crater's edge. His voice carried over the valley, strong despite years of wear. They called this a death world. They thought we would vanish. But look around you. Do you see extinction? No, you see defiance. You see survival. You see proof that no matter the odds, no matter the world, humanity will not bow. He paused, letting the words sink deep into every heart. We don't just endure. We change what cannot be changed. And when they laugh at us again, remember this place. Remember Akron 4. Because it stands as our answer to the galaxy. We are here. We will always be here. And we will rise. The crowd roared. For the first time since landing, the sound was not desperation, but triumph. Above, the storms broke briefly, revealing a pale blue star. Light spilled across the colony, shining on steel, stone, and scarred faces. Akron 4 was no longer a curse. It was home, and humanity, once the galaxy's outcast, had claimed its place not with mercy or chance, but with fire, grit, and the will to endure where none else could.